What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the seventh episode of the Ronan Bell Show. I'm your host, obviously, Ronan Bell, and with me today is a young man who, despite his age, has already traveled to places that many would never dare to. Allow me to introduce my good friend, Danny Zoller.
What's going on, man? It's a pleasure to be on the show, boss.
Dude,
I've been waiting a long time.
I'm happy to have you on, boss man. So before we go into anything deeper, let's just go into tell the audience out there just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up about 2 minutes from my friend Ronan here. Went to Springford High School. I currently am at St. Joe's University. This past year, I took a little year off to explore the world a little bit, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, so let's go into, how did you get into traveling let's go to the first place. I know that, I understand that you originally went to Peru. How did you get into that?
Well, I was all about sports at first, man. I thought, you got to play baseball, you got to play something, you got to go to college. And I suffered a bad injury. I suffered a tough tear in my back, and I decided to look elsewhere. So I went on a trip with my grandparents, and it really inspired me to start seeing the world. And so I decided to end my athletic career, not to pursue it going to college, and man, I went to Peru because I got my cousins who live there.
So let's talk about where it all started with your grandparents going on this trip. Where did you exactly go?
We went around Europe for a little while. We went to Scotland, England, Ireland. It was a cool experience, but I knew I wanted to go elsewhere than Europe for sure.
So let's get into this Peru trip. Where did that all start to go? Travel to South America. Let's go to Peru. Where did that idea come from?
Man, I always loved working with kids. I love to volunteer. I love to help out. And I found this program, and I really didn't know much about it. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I decided my cousins live down there, so I decided to go visit them for a week, and I found this program that was volunteering in an orphanage with these little kids. And man, I really did not know what was going to happen, but I decided to take the chance, and I went down there, and it was a pretty life-changing experience.
Going to Peru, most people don't even, I can't even picture what that was like. Let's go into, so you have cousins there. How is there, what was it like just starting, seeing that aspect of Peru compared to what we'll go into a little bit later about the whole traveling around?
Man, it's just different. It's so different. Up here where we're living, we're blessed to be living where we are, but it's definitely just a whole different life perspective, a whole different living style. A lot of the basic amenities that we have and that we take for granted so many times is just something that they don't have, and it taught me a lot how to live without air conditioning, how to live without some other things that we take for granted every day, man.
Yeah, we grow accustomed to.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not every day that you wake up and it's like, wow, I'm really cold.
Yeah,
during the middle of the summer, and you're like,
hey, you're sweating.
What do you think about that?
When I'm waking up and I'm sweating in my bed with no AC, it puts a different twist on life, that's for sure. Man. It puts a different twist.
So, is there anyone that really inspired you to kind of go on all these adventures?
It was definitely my grandfather. Rest in peace, his soul. He passed away about 10 years ago, and he went everywhere. And he loved India. That was his big place, but he was a World War II fighter pilot, and he used to tell me stories. And then after the war, he traveled every place: Africa, South America, Asia, you name it, he went there, and he would show me these pictures and talk about the people that he met. And I was like, wow, man, I got to carry on this guy's legacy. It's pretty powerful stuff what he did.
So now let's go into getting into this. I understand that you had cousins in Peru, and that's why you went there originally. But let's go into, how did you get involved into, and could you explain to the listeners out there a little bit about the program that you did when you went to Peru?
So it's this organization. They're named Maximo Nouvelle, and really I just went onto Google and typed in volunteer opportunities. I wanted to help. I had no direction of what I was going to do, and Maximo Nouvelle has a few locations around Central South America, and I love working with kids, man. So I saw that they had this opportunity for me. They wanted to take me in. I took some Spanish classes when I was down there. I stayed there for a month, and it was a really good organization to be a part of. They put me in a host family's house, and it took off from there.
So now let's go in more in depth into this trip to Peru.
Mm-hmm.
When you first got there, let's go into what you exactly did when you were in, this country that, most people have never even heard of rather than been to.
Dude, let me tell you, the airport is something different. When you gotta go to an airport and you don't speak the language, and really I never flew alone before. I'm trying to find my flight. When I was in Lima, Peru, I was 30 seconds from missing my flight. It's a long story, but ultimately, somehow I found my flight. I really didn't know that much Spanish at the time. I was lost. I was having anxiety through the roof, but man, it tests you. It tests you for sure. When I first got down there, I was freaking out. To be honest, like I had no idea what I was.
I think
getting
that's the
myself
reasonable
into.
thing to do.
Yeah,
You're thrown into this country where you hardly even speak the language. I mean, Spanish classes in high school do something, but that's a whole different ballgame.
It's a whole world, man. Yeah.
So after having this experience in like the airport, what did you do else in Peru besides Let's go into what you were actually there for.
Yeah, no problem. So about 4 or 5 times a week, I spent 5 or 6 hours a day in this little boys' orphanage. So there was about 25 boys there from the age of 4 to 13. And getting to know them more, it changed me. And I got to hear their stories. None of them had parents anymore. A lot of them had scars on them, and I would try to ask them. They had their parents who would abuse them, parents who left them on the streets. They were just left homeless at the age of 6, at the age of 7. No food, no family, nothing. And this orphanage takes these kids in, and they formed a family. And like these 20 kids had nothing. It was cold there at night. They had no AC. They had few blankets, little food. And I went in there every day and pretty much I'd help them with their little homework. I would play games with them, and I just tried to take on this big brother role that they were missing in their life.
It's obviously hard. I mean, especially going from, where we are now. I mean, we grew up in a good neighborhood. There was really never any problems so much as that. What was it like really that first time that you walked in? What was that emotion that you felt that when you walked in that room for the first time?
Man, it's pretty indescribable. And a moment that will always stick in my head. It was about my 3rd or 4th day. I come in and they said, Danny, come here. And they dragged me to the back of the orphanage. It's an outdoor part, and there's a big pile of dirt. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they tell me, dig, all in Spanish, of course. And I don't want to dig dirt, so they start digging. They use their hands. They're picking up dirt. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? Eventually, they reach these potatoes in the ground, and they are so happy. They're dirt covered potatoes in this big pile of just nothing, and they're like, do you want it? And I said, no, I don't need your dirt potato. But they start eating these like they're the most delicious apples that you would ever see, man. These old dirty potatoes. But these kids, they just found so much happiness and hope in the most little things, and it's something as little as a dirty potato can make their day. And I'm like, wow, what am I complaining about? What am I doing here? When these kids just have this little potato, bro, and they just love it.
And like and that makes you think, like, don't take anything for granted out there. Straight up, there's always someone, in our last podcast I just talked about, someone's always going to be in a worse situation than you are. So really reevaluate how lucky you are. If you're having a real problem, like I understand that, but if your mom doesn't get you like the Christmas present that you want, or Santa Claus doesn't bring you what you want, I mean, don't take that as deep.
Life is always going to go on, man. It's always going to go on.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. So let's go into you come back from Peru. What was it like, coming back to this, like, your regular life that you've always known?
Yeah, it was hard. I was always going to class. I was loving my life. I had a whole bunch of friends, played sports and did everything. And when I came back, my whole mindset changed. Everything just seemed different here. The houses looked bigger. Things seemed to me, it sounds weird, but things just seemed unnecessary. And it was definitely a struggle mentally to know that so many more people out there, they need so many more resources, so much more help. And living here, it felt isolated, and it felt like this culture was just, it was tough. It was tough. And I adapted. I came back, but it was definitely hard at first, man.
And then let's go into, so now I understand that you went somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So let's, what was this next step to going to where you wanted to go next?
Yeah, man. So I was itching as soon as I got home. I mean, I was happy. I was happy to be back, happy to be with my friends, but I knew that I had to do more. I couldn't just stop and settle after this one experience, which changed my life. But so during the year, it was my senior year of high school. Sticking with the same program, Maximo Nivelle, and I knew I loved to teach. I knew I loved kids. I loved working with kids. They had a TEFL program, which is teaching English as a foreign language, if you guys don't know what that is. And to get certified, you go for 1 month. I decided to go to Costa Rica to take this class in the summer of 2019. And there I got my teaching certification in Costa Rica.
So let's go into, taking a class and is that essentially what you were doing?
Yeah. It was like 7-8 hours a day, this course.
Going to Costa Rica, learning about, you're taking classes, but you're also, you're facing your hardships outside of the classroom as well. I mean, you got to learn a lot of things. What was it like living in Costa Rica let's compare it to Peru, and then we'll compare it to the United States.
Yeah, dude. It man, when I had my first thought of Costa Rica, I'm thinking resorts. I'm thinking nice, right? That's what people around here, that's what they allude to when they think of Costa Rica. And I lived in this little town. It was called Quepos. It was in the southern part of Costa Rica. There was about 3,000 people in my town, and it wasn't pretty. You had drug dealers on every corner. You had homeless people who were so drugged out of their minds, man. Like, you would look into their eyes and you would just see nothing. Like, it was really, really hard to see that this little town suffered so much when 20 minutes away there was a multi-million-dollar resort, but 20 minutes away you have this impoverished town. And it was a lot different. Peru had these parts as well, but Costa Rica was opening my eyes a lot even more.
And what I want to get into now is just, what do you think that, the United States could, so what you're saying is basically that, how far off was this resort compared to, this impoverished town in Costa Rica?
And it's 5 miles away, and it was like a whole different world. It's a whole different world. And I mean, you have mostly Americans that come down there, Europeans, people from all over, tourists that come in, and there's no connection to it. There's no money that gets funneled into these poor places. There's nothing to help these people, and it's sad.
And what I want to go into a little bit right now is, what else did you really learn in Costa Rica besides, I understand that you went there to, main purpose, let me get this teaching certificate and stuff like that. What else did you learn there besides, learning how to be a teacher?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to go back to what I was doing in Peru, in my house I had about 14 people. We had our host. He would cook us great meals, and it was a pretty nice town. I was lucky where I was. But when I came to Costa Rica, it was me, one kid, and our host mom, and our house was about the size of my basement that we're sitting in here today. It was 95 degrees every day, man. It was raining. I was sweating. Like, every second I was there, I was sweating. It was something. And I learned a lot. I learned, man, to persevere. Like, in school, and to be passionate. Like, when you love something and you're passionate about it, it's gonna push you to places that you didn't know you could go. I was in class in high school and I wasn't paying attention much. Like, I was getting through. I was getting my grades. But when I started taking this course, and it challenged me, it's a whole new perspective on everything that I thought. It challenged me, and I loved it. And when you're passionate about something, man, you just gotta go for it.
And in the end, like you knew that it was going to be worth it. You know, at the end of the day, like I know there was probably days where in Costa Rica you wanted to come home and like
Of course.
and it blew, like it sucked
Yeah,
there.
it did.
But you know, at the end of the day, if you really want to achieve something, I mean, you gotta go through. You gotta go through the trenches. And I, you know, I talk about the master path a lot on this show, and just in general, that sometimes the trenches are where. Would you say that you know in Costa Rica that's where you learn the most about? You know, I understand that you learned a lot about other people and everything that, but do you feel like that's where you learned a lot about yourself?
I did, man. It gave me a lot of isolation, just to think and just to really prioritize what is valuable in this world, man. Like you can go through a lot of different things, but to know what truly is important to you, and I learned that there. I definitely did.
So let's go into now. What was this? I understand that we went a little bit deeper in that, but let's come back up a little bit and go into you know what was this teaching certificate do? Like what? So all the listeners out there, let's just explain what that exactly did for you.
Yeah, and so when you get your TEFL certification, it gives you the opportunity to go anywhere in the world. You can, if you say, man, I want to go teach in Africa, I want to go teach in Asia, South America, wherever. You take this course and it provides you the resources and the ability to go anywhere you want and have a job really anywhere around the world, which is it tied two things I love. I love teaching and I love to travel. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. And it provides you these experiences that are priceless. You know, you don't make a ton of money. You really don't make a ton of money. But if you take this course, and for a lot of people out there who maybe think about education or they just love to travel, I 100% think getting your TEFL certification is amazing.
So now let's go into, so now I'm, like Danny is my friend from high school, obviously. So senior year, Danny comes up to me with this really big idea. And Danny, let's just go into, what was this certificate? What did this lead you to in the next step in your life?
Yeah, so I was originally supposed to go to George Washington University, and the price tag is not too favorable, that's for sure. And about 2 weeks into my course, my trainer, she comes up to me and she said, Danny, you're really good at this. I live in Guatemala. I'd like you to come with me to go teach there. And I'm like, wow, man, that'd be pretty something. But around the United States, this idea, this term of a gap year it seems like so frowned upon. You know, in our system, you think you got to go right to college.
High school, college, the classic steps, the straight line path.
Internship, you get the job.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, college is always going to be there. Like, it really will be. And to take a year, I got a lot of mixed reactions from it. It was definitely hard from the people back home, some people not agreeing with my choices I was making. But she asked me to come along with her to Guatemala. And I agreed. So I talked to GW, and they said they'd raise my price tag. So I was also looking to go to St. Joe's University at the time. I sent them an email telling them about my opportunity, and they said they'd love to have me the following year. Yeah.
And you know, something with I want to say about that whole like gap year situation is that you know, to anyone out there even considering it, like take it from this kid who's done it. You know what I'm saying? Like he did the gap year, and do you regret not like going straight into college a little bit, or not at all?
Man, I've gone back and forth on, you know, when I say looking back, do I do this again? Would I do the same steps? And do I promote, you know, taking a year off? And of course now 2020 COVID came, and it just flipped our entire world upside down. But it teaches you things that you can never learn. You know, it gets you out of a bubble that a lot of people, a lot of my friends, a lot of just people in the United States are living in. You know, you live in this little world, you have your social media, you have your friend group, and you think everything is so important. And that's what I took out of this gap year and this traveling, is that, you know, some things just aren't as important as we think they are, man. They really aren't. Like you go and you see other things and you just realize a lot, and it taught me so many things. And for people out there who don't excel necessarily in school, who don't love the whole process of what it is, go for it, man. College will always be.
Yeah, if you were saying earlier, if you have a passion for something, like hell, go try it. And if it doesn't work out, there's always something else. There's always another door to open.
Always something else, man.
Always another door to open. So let's take a step back again and let's go into, Guatemala. What was life like there for you? Take us through, getting there, like your typical day so much. Let's go into that a little bit.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, my course was 1 month. And again, I thought I was working with kids. It turned out that I'm teaching adults. I'm teaching doctors. I'm teaching lawyers that are in these impoverished communities. But to learn English for them is the key to making more money. So you're having these students in my classes who are so motivated, so driven to learn this language so they can better themselves, they can better their families. And I ended up teaching about 6 or 7 classes a day. I'd wake up at 6 in the morning. I'd class at 7 to 10 because, again, we have adults, so they work during the day. I had class from 7 to 10 in the morning, all different levels. And I had from the basics, hello, how are you, to advanced writing. And then we had a midday gap. I'd go around, walk around town, get some lunch, lesson plan for my classes. And then I would teach from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night. So every day I was 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. working. About 6 different levels of English I had to teach, and it was tough at first. And
so when you're doing this, whole new life thing in Guatemala, let's go into a little bit like what was life like there compared. What is a teacher compared to in Guatemala? Like how's their salary compared to that? Like let's go into what was like the lifestyle in general.
So I made. After my lesson planning and after my classes, I made about $2.50 an hour.
Wow.
And I worked my butt off, man. I tell you, I did everything for my students that I could. And $2.50 an hour, US dollars, was way more than what police officers made. It's way more than what your average worker made in Guatemala. And it just put some type of perspective on it, man. And I was still struggling to come up with funds to, pay for food, to pay for entertainment, my rent. And I was making more than the average person there, dude. $2.50 an hour.
And what was like the housing situation like in Guatemala? Because obviously I don't think a lot of the listeners out there can really picture what, most of us are growing up in like a house with a couple rooms. What was your house like?
Yeah, well, I had 2 different places I stayed in. My first place was owned by a host. Her name was Gloria, the most amazing person there. And there was about 6 rooms there. Again, the size of a relatively small house here around in our community. And I had people from all over the world who would just pop into our house. And we had a little balcony up top, little terrace that had overlooked the city. But our house was, square footage wise, less than 1,000 square feet, which isn't much. And we had about 9 or 10 people living in it. But it formed these connections with these people, man. You got to talk to people from Ireland, from Australia, from South America. And I just wanted to listen, man. You talked about that a lot in some of your podcasts, about just listening to people. And when you get to hear these stories from travelers, it puts a lot into perspective.
And a point that I want to touch upon is that, you didn't meet these people before. Like, you had no prior knowledge. These people weren't considered, like, your friends walking in. But what about, like, the things that, is there any story that you can recall that you really, like, learned a lot from? Any person that you met from, let's just go from that little tight-knit community that you had in your little housing complex thing.
Yeah, man, there was this one lady. Her name was Fiona, and she was, I think she's in her 60s now. She taught in Saudi Arabia. She taught in Indonesia. She taught in Europe. She taught in South America. And I was struggling for the first month or 2. I didn't know how to do my classes, man. I wasn't really sure how to teach it. I wasn't really sure if I made the right decision. I saw my friends back at home living it up at college, and I'm sitting there, 18 years old, not many friends, not much direction. And this lady, Fiona, would talk to me, and really what she emphasized a lot was, it was one day at a time. A lot of things you do are thankless. You think you're doing good work, but are you getting the recognition? And it's hard. A lot of people, they want that recognition of doing something well. But she taught me, man, if it's in your heart If you truly believe in something, that you just go for it, and it doesn't matter the pay, it doesn't matter the recognition. What you get out of it is priceless.
At the end of the day, I mean, this is something, that making that big decision is pretty much, you're doing it yourself. At the end of the day, no one is going to tell you to go do that.
Yeah, dude.
Because I don't think anyone that I've met or anyone around our community has ever even, that thought has never crossed their mind to, kind of, do something that no one else does. And let's go into, you stepped out of, going to all these places, teaching a class in another language. No one else speaks the language there. Let's go about, what was it like really stepping out of your comfort zone to get into all this, traveling, teaching around the world?
Hard, man. You get this, you have a standard here. And there's a way of life that's about here. And when you going about making a big decision, it's not easy. And a lot of times we try to side with what is safer for us, what makes us feel more comfortable. And at the end of the day, man, it sounds cliche, but we're only here once. We're only here once, and it's a big, big world out there. And when you're going through it, I mean, when I'm at home, you get drama over everything. Like, come on. Like, these people in college, when you go out to a college party, the amount of anxiety that has arisen in a college party and choosing your outfits and trying to impress a boy or trying to impress a girl, it's so much. And in reality, man, what is it? Like, what is it all for? Like, why are you posting these pictures? Why are you doing a certain thing that you're doing, man? And when I had this decision to come up and just sort of abandon the way of life that I knew it, I looked at it, I was scared, but I looked at it and I said, why not? Why not do this?
Something I want to go into now is, what was it like going to these different places and not even being able to fully communicate? What was it like not being able to speak English in these places?
It's hard, and you want to express yourself. You really want to, and you want to get by, and you want to ask someone for directions. Or if you're in a bar, you want to hit a girl up, But guess what? It's so hard. Like, you can't speak the language. You felt dumb. It sounds a little mean, but I felt, I felt shy, but I felt like I was just, it's really difficult. And when you're just going to a store and you're trying to ask for the peanut butter in a shopping center or in a market, and you have no idea, it's hard to negotiate prices, you're getting scammed by people in the taxis, and you're trying to figure out, where do I find my house when I have no internet connection and I'm an hour from home and it's 3 a.m. and you're in a taxi and you don't really know how to speak his language. It makes you feel dumb, man. It's hard, and it's made me want to practice my Spanish a lot. Yeah.
Is there anything that you kind of did to try and like adapt to that, big, I want to say language gap. Is that the word? Yeah, I think that's the word I'm looking for.
It comes with practice. You just got to keep trying, man. And it's hard. Our education system and a lot of problems that I see in it, and we both took Spanish for 5-6 years. And how much Spanish do you know?
Absolutely, no big deal. I'm a Spanish minor if anyone wants to know, but I can't speak a lick of Spanish.
Nothing, dude, nothing. So I go down, and 1 month in Peru, every day I try to practice. I'd ask these 6 and 7 year olds, like, teach me, help me. I'll help your English if you help my Spanish. And that's what it's all about, listening to music, reading books. You really got to practice, and the only way to get better is by just living there. And when in our world, it's all English, and there's this a whole other world out there, man.
That's what I was just about to say. I think that living in the United States, we are kind of put in this. The word I'm looking for is bubble, because I think you used that earlier, and I think that's a really good word to describe it, because most people, they haven't stepped outside of this country. What is it really like, not being able to communicate with someone else? I mean, it's hard. Tough. But at the end of the day, I'll go into this now, all these things that you went to, I won't want to consider them mistakes, failures, But at the end of the day, when you had those hard times, when you felt like you were failing, what thoughts arose in your mind internally?
Some of them weren't good, to be honest, dude. You look on when you have a lot of time to think, the human brain does a lot of weird things, and a lot of them can be unhealthy. But you gotta think about things in a positive aspect, and the things that you take out of what you do, they're learning experiences, right? You go through relationships, and people say to you, don't date this, but I guess it's learning experiences. You go to these places, and when you're faced with hardships, I was, I got myself into some sticky situations when I was down there. It was partly my fault, a couple too many drinks, or you're out somewhere where you don't know where you are and you don't know what to do, and you got to learn from them. You got to know that life is going to keep going on. You got to keep on keeping on.
Keep on, yeah. It's just about it. Great tagline on the show is keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on, man.
Go buy my merch.
Exactly, dude. Yeah, we go ahead.
Yeah, so let's go. This is the next question I want to get into is, obviously, Danny's very humble about it, but he's a very good student as well.
Appreciate it.
And I understand that, school is very important in our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And, if you want to take those next steps in the life and getting a job someday,
Of course.
Let's go into what else have these places taught you besides, the basic things, like what you were there for. Let's take it a little bit deeper than that. What about the wisdom that you tried to attain from all these other people and all these other situations?
Again, I come back to listening. I come back to that phrase because, I don't know. We don't know much. We're 18, 19 years old, and it's you got to accept that you aren't the center of the universe, and that's what I learned a lot. And my first week when I was down there, and I wear this chain around my neck. It's a bear claw from a Native American tribe in the United States, and I met this kid. His name was Harrison, and it was my first week there. I had no friends, and this dude has been through he spent 2 years in the Himalayas with a monk, meditating with him, and this really spiritual guy, and he was way above my head. But all I did was sat and I listened. I listened to people like Fiona, who taught everywhere. I listened to other people who've been through these just hardships, man. The kids in the orphanage, and I listened to them. I listened to their stories of how they got there, and that's the only thing we can do, dude. Absorb the information that comes at us.
And I think that there's a big stigma around, when someone's talking to you that's younger than you, like you don't know, like they don't know shit. Like someone that's older than you, like you're not down with the times. Like, fuck all that. Get that out of your brain right now if you're thinking about it like that. Stop making quick judgments. Like, I try and make the point of, everyone is a human being. You can learn something from anyone, even if like you're going into it and you don't hate them and you think that person's a shitty person, they're talking out their ass. But at the end of the day, like, even if they are, you know what you can learn from that? Not like you don't want to be like that person.
Exactly. Dude.
And if you just take it like that instead of making these quick judgments, like I'm not learning anything. This person's full of it. Take a step back. Really take a step back in the conversation. Listen. A little bit more. If you don't like the conversation, it's okay. At least pay attention. Be respectful. Give that person your time. And I want to go into now. I understand that you were not in these places probably as long as that you wanted to.
Yeah.
How much more important do you feel that time is in the factor of your life?
Oh, man, it's everything. My trip, I was down in Guatemala. It was about March 7th, and we know what March of 2020 did to this world. It was about March 7th. I had a few weeks left of my contract. I was going to go travel around, enjoy my summer. And I get a call from my mom, and she said I have to come home. And I said no. I hung up. I said no, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. And the next day my dad calls me. He says, "You're coming home tomorrow." Or in like a day or two. And that's when Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID. And
the world went to shit.
Right, so I flew home the day COVID really just was at its peak of just insanity. And that flight home and that drive home from the airport and seeing the emptiness and everything, and my life was just taken away. Like everything that I valued, everything that I loved, I finally found my place. After the first month or two teaching was hard, and I finally got into it. I had my friends, I was living this amazing life, and just in a snap, man, in a one phone call, it was gone. Like everything that I had built up, it was just gone, and it was hard, man. So like you just gotta, every day, dude, every single day, you gotta appreciate it.
I think people have the misconception right now, especially with social media and the whole, I'm flexing on you with this and this and this. At the end of the day, I mean, you can always make money.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Sure, money will always be there. I mean, I don't want to say that's not. Let me explain what I'm trying to say with that. There is always a way to make money, no matter what you're doing. You can always hopefully get a job. You can always find some way to have something in your pocket. But the thing that you will never be able to get back in your entire life is time. The seconds that are going by on this podcast, the hours that went by 2 days ago, you're never going to be able to get that moment back. And Danny, I want to ask you this question. Did Guatemala try and these places, after COVID, did this teach you to kind of like cherish a little bit more just in the moment?
Because it really what's been happening, even we saw it pre-COVID, but now even more is these travel bans, right? A lot of us were not allowed to go to Europe now. Yes, COVID has made it a lot worse, and a lot of other places you can't go, and for my traveling friends around the world are experiencing this. Really, you're feeling trapped. You're feeling like what's the point right now? And it's hard when and anyone at home here too. You're stuck at home. You can't go to college, and you don't know what the point is. Why I'm just doing this every day, but every day you gotta make something out of it. You gotta use your time in a positive manner, man, to better yourself.
And I think that something a lot of people can relate to is the fact that, everyone is experiencing this adversity right now. It's not like no one's really not taking it. When COVID hit, everyone had to stay inside. It wasn't just you, the world was way bigger than you were at the time,
It's true, man.
So I want to get into this a little bit, COVID from a mental standpoint, it was very hard sitting there. Obviously, whole perspective on your life changed. You weren't even living in the same country, let alone living the same lifestyle. When coronavirus hit, I mean, physically, we're always pretty healthy. Food in our stomachs, everything about. What about up here, level-headed? I like to talk about mental awareness a lot because I think it's something that's a little bit overlooked, and that I think everyone has a problem with eventually. So, how mentally were you able to cope with that?
Man, first, just for everybody, man, like the rise of mental awareness, the rise of just mental hardships that came on here is tough, and it's growing to a point that is incomprehensible right now. And for me, man, I'm not afraid to really admit that. Even before COVID, in high school, and I'd go to therapy and just to talk to someone, just to be able to get your feelings out there, because a lot of times when you're feeling lonely, dude, again, like I said before, your brain can go into some bad places. And that's what a lot of people started to have, man. They had their cell phone, but you're alone. You're alone in your house, and your brain just does some crazy things sometimes, and it has caused a lot of problems in our world. And for me, it was March and April, man. It was hard. Like I wanted to leave. I wanted to run away. I wanted to just go live in a tent. I couldn't deal with my parents. I couldn't deal with anything, dude. I thought woe is me. Life is so bad. Why did this happen to me? And then I began talking to other people. I hear like everyone's going through this, man. Everyone was stripped of their freedoms. Their college was taken away. Whatever it is, man. And it was hard, but you gotta stay every day positive. You gotta wake up and just, you choose to be happy or you choose to be sad. And that's the biggest thing.
At the end of the day, I mean, I talked about this on my last podcast, you're the one making the decision.
Yeah, you are, man.
Life is, Peter was talking about this on the last podcast about, life is choices. Straight up. I mean, you can be happy or you can be sad. It's up to you. I mean, if you're going to let someone affect your mood, don't. Hell, they aren't you. I mean,
Preach it, bro.
at the end of the day, I mean, if you are not happy with what you are doing, screw it. Get out of it. Change it.
Make it change.
It's okay. And if the other thing that you want to do, might not be as profitable, screw the money. Take that out of it. At the end of the day, if you are not happy, go do something else.
Make it change. Go against what society has.
Go against the curve, y'all. Like I talk about the master path, and I will keep bringing up. Sometimes you have to fall in those trenches to be able to figure out what you truly want to do in this life. And, to find your purpose. Danny, I'll ask you this question. In high school, did you really feel like, obviously taking the next step into college wasn't for you. But when you were doing this, when you went to Guatemala and you started teaching these kids, what was your new purpose in life that you felt like?
Man, my new purpose was to help. It was to give back somehow, some way. And that feeling is indescribable, man. It's indescribable when you know that you can... Even if it's one person, if it's two people, if those people, in your life, whenever it is, you can find them and they will tell you, like, thank you. If someone says thank you to you for helping you, there's no price tag that you can put on it, man. And it's why I felt, useless. Not useless at school, but like I could be doing more, and there's more people that need help. And to be able to go out there and help them, and when they come back to you and they say, like, thank you for all of this, they don't need to give you money, man. They don't. They just, it's the connection.
It's something, there's more, life is way more about, the experiences that you had than the money that you spend.
I agree.
Anyone can buy a car. Like, anyone can have material things. What does that mean to you, though? I mean, obviously some things have sentimental value. I'm not discrediting any of that. But... like, the experiences that you have in life is just, I'll ask the question, because this is the topic that I want to go into next. Like, was there anything that you would change, or would you do it all over again the same way?
And I keep asking myself that, because when I came home, before I left for Peru the first time, pretty normal life. Loved my sports, did what I had to do to get by. And when I came home, man, it heightened my mental depression, and heightened my mental just instability, because I knew there was so much more out there. And for people who want to travel, and I say, yes, go do it, I also look back and I say doing it at such a young age made it harder for me to enjoy the little things now that are here in the world that I used to know and I used to love. But it again, man, it taught me a lot, and it made it hard. And sometimes I look back saying, I wish I did those normal steps, but I quickly retract from that, because I know what these experiences taught me, man.
And I want the listeners out there to understand that there should never be any regret with that. I ask that question on every single one of my podcasts, and it's not about regret and not making that decision, because if you're regretting something, you want to change it. You shouldn't change it. You can look at it a different way. Think of it as, how could I have done that better? How could I, what could have happened if I did this or that? There's a learning experience behind it. It's not always regretting it, and then, you can't live your life like that. If you keep living your life in regret, man, you're not living it right. If you keep focused on the past, it's the past. It happened. What else are you going to do about it?
Dude.
You were saying earlier that the one lady, what was her name, Fiona, was talking about living life in the moment. And she was, how old, 60 years old? That's something that if you at 20, a lot of my listeners out there, in the college age, they're, around my age, 20 years old. If you can figure out how to do that at this age, imagine how much more full your life would feel, rather than... just looking back on it, it's like, wow, I went to that party and now I have a bunch of homework and now I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I regret going there. Don't regret it. Learn from it. There's always something else that you can do.
It's true, man. And when talking about, you can't look at the past, and you also can't have anxiety over the future, because that's an anxiety that's unattainable. You can't change the future, because the future's never going to come. It's always the present. you always gotta live in the present, dude, and do what's best for you right then and there. And you're gonna have to live with the choices that you make.
If you woke up every day worrying about what the day is going to hold, you wouldn't really experience the day. Think about that a little bit, guys out there. Just if you can't live, in the present and you can't cherish that moment, and you're still worried about what's going to happen next. You're not really gonna attain that moment. Ben D was a person I had on the podcast earlier, and he said, a point that he brought up was putting down the phone at these big events and just, have it on their phone so one day that they'll be able to look at it again. How do you feel about that statement?
I mean, you just gotta. It's true. I love it, man. When we're out with people, and I love to people watch. It's a little creepy, but I love seeing.
I feel like everyone likes.
Yeah, of course. I love seeing how people interact with one another, and when you're looking down at your phone, man, you're never gonna get that. I would love to see how people react in different situations, and you're a robot when you look down at your phone, man. Put it down and appreciate where you are and just talk to someone, man.
Someone, what you were saying about, I'll bring that back up again, is that, she probably didn't grow up with a cell phone. No. She probably, most people that age don't know how to use the internet.
Yep.
And, when you live life a little bit, more through your own eyes rather than worrying about what someone else has to do, I feel like that takes away some of this, anxiety about, living about in the future, worrying about what someone else has to do. And, bringing a little bit more towards mental awareness, just that, so you can think about yourself before, worrying about whatever someone else has to say about you.
I totally agree, man. I totally agree.
So before I wrap the show, I like to, end every show with a quote that, my guest would like to present that kind of, means a lot to them, brings them up, like when they're down, does something for them internally. So Danny, what would that quote be?
This one comes from my dad, actually, and he's been preaching this one to me for a long time. It's don't be afraid to succeed. It really does sound stupid, but a lot of people out there, we talk about mental health, they get down on themselves. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know. There's so many unknowns in this world, but just don't be afraid to succeed. Go out and get what you want to get. And if you want to go travel, go against the curve, do something different. Be who you are and don't worry about other people. 20, 30 years from now, the person that bothered you in high school, is nothing. It's nothing. Don't be afraid to succeed for yourself and for the betterment of you, man. I
say that a lot, I think this ties into, if you want to go start something, go do it. Go do it. Simple.
Period.
This whole we've been talking about life a lot on this podcast about, just me and Danny in general, just how short life really is. If don't have any regret. If you want to go do something, go do it, guys. Go do it. If it fails, what happens, Danny?
Man, you keep on keeping on.
It is not the end of the world. You are going to keep going. You're going to wake up the next morning. You will be 100% fine, everyone.
Yeah, dude. And to all my people around the world and to everyone that's here, and man, again, I go back to it one more time before this wraps up about this whole gap year thing, dude, about going out and not having to go to college that first year. It'll change your life, man. It'll change your life to experience a different culture, and it sounds cliche, but it really, really will. Don't be afraid to succeed. Keep on keeping on, dude. And if anyone ever has any questions, man, I know, just come talk to me, dude. It's a cool experience, and I appreciate you having me on here today to talk about it a little bit, man.
Of course, brother. So before I turn off the mics, Danny, is there anything else that you want to plug into the viewers out there?
Man, just don't be afraid out there. It's a tough world, especially 2020 that we're living in right now. It's a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty that goes on about everything. But you stay within yourself. You don't have this anxiety about what the future holds. Just win every day. Make every day a new day and make it a great day. And that's really all you can do. You can't control these external things, man. That's all I got.
The wise words from Danny Zoller. And to anyone out there that is listening, thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. And everyone, as always, just keep on keeping on.